and to give the word and also to screen to my colleague Bertalan. So Bertalan, you can start sharing your screen now. Bertalan is soy market analyst at the Donau Soja, and he will present an outlook of European soya in 26. Bertalan, please.
Hello, everybody, and sorry for the small confusion. So, as the soy market analyst, I'm going to focus in the next 15 minutes on two topics. The first topic will be our soya area forecast for this season, and the second topic will be food sovereignty and its connection with soybean in the European Union. So, let's start with the first topic. What we expect in this season in 2026, the sowing season has recently, over the last days, started in Europe, and it will be ongoing in the next weeks. And what is our expectation now? That in Europe, the soybean area will be broadly stable this season, but with major regional differences. We expect that in Western Europe it will grow up. That's why I indicated Germany and France with green. It will radically drop in the Balkan region and in Hungary. This is our expectation, and it will be only slightly change in the rest of Europe. If you are more interested in more detailed numbers, then I recommend the Donau Soja market report. It is published on a monthly basis, and the April issue is published today after the webinar. Let's see the biggest soya producer countries or regions in Europe, what we expect there. In the European Union, we see that over the recent years there was a slow increasing trend, and this season we expect as Donau Soja that the soya area will be stagnating or slightly marginally increase. Now we expect a 0.3% increase within the European Union. This is our expectation, but over the last weeks, several other companies published their own expectations. These organizations are DG Agri or the USDA or COSERA, which is an NGO in Brussels, and all of them are more positive, more optimistic. They say that the soya area will increase within the European Union by between 1 and 4%. This was the European Union. Ukraine, we expect a decrease of between 4 and 5%. This decrease is mainly because of the export tax on soybean, which was introduced over the last month, actually in the second half of the previous year, and it undermines the profitability of soybean, and that's why we expect a decrease. But later I will speak more about the factors that affect the decisions of farmers whether to plant soybean or not this season. So that was Ukraine. In Ukraine, beyond us, there are some other associations or organizations which published forecasts over the recent weeks and months, and the forecast of these three organizations is all of them forecast a decrease between 4% and 11%. And Serbia, which is only important soya producer in Europe, unfortunately, the picture is less rosy in Serbia. We expect again a radical decrease, and we calculate with 70,000 hectares this year, which is much less compared to, for example, what we saw 4 years ago. It was 280,000. This decrease is because of the disappointment of farmers, which witnessed very low yields because of the dry weather in Serbia over the recent years. And actually, these low yields over the recent years discourage farmers in this region to produce soybean this season. What are the main driving factors that affect the decisions of the farmers whether to produce soybean or not in this season? One of them, which is favorable for soybean production, is the input prices, energy and fertilizer prices. There are also long-term trends which also supportive for soya area. These long-term trends, for example, the growing demand for European local and non-GM and deforestation-free products. These growing demand for these features support the soya area in the region. There are also important driving factors are the soya prices. They are moving, we will see they are moving at a relatively low level, but all grain prices move at a relatively low levels. So the competitiveness of soya didn't decrease so much. So I consider it as a neutral factor. And actually my last driving factors that I can mention is the yields in 2025 in the Balkan region, which is a very negative factor. It discouraged farmers in Hungary and Croatia and Serbia and in Romania to produce soybean this year. So this yield is negative for the Balkan region and Hungary and for some Eastern European countries, but actually positive for Western European countries, because in Western European countries the yields were quite high in the recent year. So let's focus on the input prices and soya prices over on the next slides. Input prices. Fertilizer prices are very important cost item in the production of plants. And over the recent weeks, we saw a very radical increase of fertilizer prices because of the war in Iran. Iran is a very important actually, the Strait of Hormuz, which was blocked over the recent weeks, is a very important trade hub or trade route for fertilizers. 30% of the global fertilizer trade flows there, and now it was partly or fully blocked, and that's why the fertilizer prices went up very much, also because of the higher gas prices. And we see how it increased in March, and actually this graph doesn't show the further increase in April. After the end of this month, which is today, actually next week, the new values will be published, and I expect that this chart will show that these prices will go even further. And it is actually favorable for soybean. Why? Because soybean is less energy intensive. And when the fertilizer prices go up, then the farmers then they prefer to produce more soybean because of their limited fertilizer need. But I also need to highlight here that this recent growth or jump come a bit late, because farmers had already made their purchase of the inputs. So they both most of the farmers buy their seeds and other inputs, including fertilizers, earlier, not in March and April, but earlier in the crop season, in the winter time. So maybe this jump came a bit too late to make a radical decision on the decisions of the farmers. But if it remains so high, or if it goes further in the next season, it will have a massive impact. This is what my expectations. So this was the input cost. Non-GMO soybean price is also an important driving factor. We see that if we compare the current price of 420 euros per ton, this is the current price, then it is slightly lower than the long-term average. But actually, as I mentioned, all of the grain prices, including wheat and maize, is moving at a low level. So the competitiveness of the soybean price is not so, or the soybean is not so low at this moment. That's why I considered it as a neutral factor. So until now, I spoke about our soya area forecast, and now I would like to devote some slides for food sovereignty and soybean. Within the European Union, we are facing a very low self-sufficiency ratio when we look at the soybean. As long as we produce 3 million tons, we consume more than 10 times this volume. 35 million tons is our consumption. That's why our self-sufficiency ratio is very, very low, and over 90% of the consumption is covered by import, which is actually an outstanding low self-sufficiency ratio, mostly in the light of the other products. In the field of the other basic agriculture products, such as cereals or poultry meat, the European Union, the EU's self-sufficiency ratio is over or close to 100%. The big soya is the only exception, and this means that if we have a disruption in the import, then it undermines or it is very dangerous for all of the pork and poultry sector, because soya is used in the feed of pork and poultry sector, and this becomes more and more dangerous. Why? Because over the last 5 years, we witnessed a wide range of and increasing number of crises, such as climate change, the COVID, war in Ukraine, yes, which is not presented here, but also the Iran war, and the big question, what will be the next crisis, and if this next crisis put our soya import at danger. So this is why I would highlight here the importance to increase this self-sufficiency ratio, and mostly in the light of the structure of our import. 70% of our import comes from two countries, Brazil and US, and both of the import is problematic. Why I'm saying this? Brazilian import is problematic from the view of the deforestation, and import from the US is problematic from the view of trade wars, which was waged by the US over the recent months. We never know when we get in a trade war with US, and if the soybean will be covered or not in this trade war. So my time is, I have 1 minute left, so I jump to the last slide, which is my conclusions. So what we learned today in my presentation, that the soybean area in 2026, this year, remains broadly stable, but there will be strong regional differences. We expect increase in Western Europe. We expect a radical decrease in the Balkan region and a slight decrease in Ukraine. High fertilizer prices support soybean area this season, but the effect will be more stronger in the next year. And I also covered the topic that the EU has a very low soya self-sufficiency ratio, and it is strategic for the livestock sector. It would be strategic to increase this self-sufficiency ratio, and expanding sustainable European soy production would be very important for our food sovereignty. And my next slides, I would like to advocate our two market reports. One of them, which you see on the left side, is the monthly Donau Soja market report, which focus only on non-GMO soybean. And the other one focuses on three crops, on soy, non-GMO soy, maize, and rapeseed. And if you are interested in more detailed information, then I recommend that you might visit our website to see how you can subscribe these market reports. If you are a member, then you receive these market reports freely. Thank you very much for your attention, and now I hand over to Vova.
Ja, basta. Ich muss dort lernen.
Bist du es so?
Ich muss da arbeiten. Okay.
Bist du es noch?
Wenn die sehen mich, weißt du?
Thank you, Bertalan. So we will now hear from our colleague from Ukraine, Vladimir Pogachev, from the Kiev office, the insights from the Ukraine, and so covering the evolution of soybean production and outlook of 26 season from their side, including also market drivers and export dynamics towards the EU. So Vova, please, you can share your presentation.
Thank you, Jovana. First of all, good afternoon, dear colleagues. It's a pleasure to speak at this webinar. You know that usually we do the webinar before sowing period or under the sowing period, and also after the harvesting period, sharing the latest news about yields and sharing the latest Donau Soja news. My colleague Bertalan did a great presentation with the overview on the general European topic. I will go deep dive for the information and current situation in the biggest European soya producer and maybe also processor in Ukraine. First of all, several words about Donau Soja activities in Ukraine and Donau Soja office in Ukraine. And why we can proudly name ourselves maybe one of the major soya associations acting not only on the European level, but also locally in Ukraine. So the office was established quite a long time ago, 2018. Still till the 2022, till the period when the war started, we organized value chain development activities and activities promoting sustainable and non-GM soya cultivation in Ukraine. After the war started, the operations and priorities definitely has changed. On one side, on other side, this gave really increased boost for firstly soya cultivation, but secondly for our programs like Protein Partnership Program and our Europe Soya Certification Program in Ukraine, trying to prepare producers, processors, value chain actors to implementation of European Union deforestation regulation, also supporting farmers with our special programs on the seeds, and also adopting European Union rules and regulations, helping companies on the bottom, on the ground level, to be already prepared for the further European Union accession. And one of our newest developments, which we still are not able to announce as it's located at the European Commission in the process of approval, is our standard for feedstocks to be compliant with Renewable Energy Directive, so-called RED directive. And this standard is currently under approval of European Commission as one of the voluntary standards. When it will be assessed and approved, we'll share this information for you and maybe have own separate webinar on this. Presenting Ukraine, presenting soya cultivation in Ukraine. As you see, I love to go in the history because I started from the history of Donau Soja. And now I'm continuing with the history of soya cultivation, which is a bit longer. So it's more than 150 years of experience of soya cultivation in Ukraine. starting with Austrian researcher Frederick Haberland, bringing soya to the western parts of Ukraine and starting the trials. Results of that trials were published in very famous book, Die Sojabohne, or the soybeans, which was published and located in Vienna. And this is actually some historical data on development of soya cultivation in Ukraine, which I have quite limited comparing to 150 years. But as you see, the last 20 years, soya is on the rise in Ukraine and developing in Ukraine, which leads to really very good cultivation results and very good yields, developments of the production and general harvest. You can see on this slide that the top or the #1 record of soya area and harvested soya was in 2024, which is officially assessed on the level of 6 million tons. Last year, it was a decrease of soya in Ukraine, but still it's the #2 highest volumes of soya production, which is almost more or less 5 million tons. Clearly, that agriculture of Ukraine is now under pressure of several negative factors that influence the production. One, the most immediate one, or with the most direct action, is definitely the war. The losses and damages to Ukrainian agriculture due to the war. You can see the big figure, which is assessed on the level of 80 billion USD. This is the assessment of Kyiv School of Economics. This is the money, what would be necessary for the overall recovery of Ukraine. And you can also see that one of the biggest shares, 11.5 from this money, it's quite big amount, is necessary only for recovery of agriculture before the pre-war state, so on the level of 2021. And also additionally, 56 billion of USD would be necessary simply for the next 10 years to have the pace for the development of the agriculture. The second shock, which is has quite long-term actions and definitely influencing not only Ukraine, but the whole Europe. I guess that on the slide of my colleague Bertalan, you saw this very prominently because soya is moving from the southern parts of Europe to the north parts of Europe. Same we can see when we see the topic of or investigate the topic of climate change in Ukraine. We can see that the steppe zone, which is actually dry and very hot zone for agriculture, has moved for approximately 250 kilometers on the north of the Ukraine, which on one side gives very hard conditions to do any agricultural activities in southern and central parts of Ukraine. On the other hand, it gives perfect possibilities and opportunities for western and northern farmers, especially in soya cultivation. And this is also one of the factors why we see that soya started to increase in Ukraine, because this orange zone, what you see on the slide, is starting to develop, which gives very favorable conditions for soya cultivation for the farmers. And also one very important economical factor, because in Donau Soja we always speak about value chains developments and trade development between different actors, is export possibilities of Ukraine. Ukraine is much self-sufficient in all agricultural goods and food, and also in soybeans. So around 75% of overall soya that was cultivated in Ukraine is exported. I will cover this afterwards in my next slides. So around 75% is exported, and it's very much also dependent on the routes of export. Now, this is very prominent slide of importance of Black Sea ports for Ukrainian agriculture. This is the data when the war started from the March 2021 till actually last year, because there is no need to project it till Black Sea is operating. But you can see the distribution of means of transportation means that was used by farmers, companies, traders. For the exports and the importance of operation of Black Sea ports for different deliveries, especially soybean ones, because what we can see, train and truck deliveries of soybeans developed, especially with our most neighboring partners, the European Union. But still, some of the European Union countries that have good access to the ports continue to use and increasing to use, generally speaking, the ports, the Black Sea. This is Italy, this is definitely Spain, and this is France that operating via the ports. When we go to speak about exports, this is actually the customs data for the whole last year about volumes of exports of these products. And in my table on the right side, you can also see the soybeans equivalent for such products as soybean meal and soybean oil. Why this is important? Because Ukraine started to process internally big amounts of soybeans, producing soybean meal and byproduct soybean oil, still having these products as one of the main export products. And if you will calculate 3.4 million tons of soybeans exported and 3.1 soybeans equivalent exported as soybean oil, you will come to the projection of the figure, how big is, generally speaking, Ukrainian soya exports comparing to own production, meaning that biggest amounts is exported in the form of soybeans or soybean meal or soybean oil. And this is quite interesting slide because it shows the importance of European Union in the trade relations, not only political, but mostly trade relations with Ukraine. Small part, or let's say like not half, 43% of soybeans is exported to European Union countries. Other most exporting countries is Turkey and Egypt for Ukrainian soybeans. This is mostly remains because of the price, because of the high price, export and internal price on the soybeans due to increased processing demand for soybeans, but still 43% is the share of European Union, and the dramatic share of European Union exports is for soybean meal and mostly for soybean oil. So generally speaking, almost every ton of soybean oil produced in Ukraine goes to the European Union, and more or less the same comes with soybean meal. So nevertheless, either the product is processed or produced in Ukraine, most likely it will end up in the European Union value chains. Now, my colleague Bertolan did a great projection of sowing campaign 2026 for soya in different European Union countries. Let's go more specifically for Ukraine. So what's the main factors? You can see them on the screen. I will go quite highlighting the most important ones. It was very cold winter. It was reaching 17, 20 degrees below zero in many regions of Ukraine. It was very big snowfalls. So first of all, after this winter, the moisture on the ground was accumulated quite good on the one hand. On the other hand, it shifted the window for the sowing. It shifted the start of the sowing in Ukraine quite mostly half of the month in behind. But now the other issue that still the cold weather continues, like today in Kiev, in the evening, in the night, it's 1 degree above zero and only 9 degrees above zero during the day. The same or even worse comes for the regions, for the fields. That's why you can see that it's official figure from the Ministry of Agriculture, or okay, now it's called Ministry of Economy, Environment and Agriculture of Ukraine. The pace is around 35% less. The sowing pace is around 35% slower than 2025. This is quite an issue for soya cultivation because soya has to be planted, has to be put in the ground on 5 centimeter deeps with the optimal temperature being 9 degrees above zero. And if we have only 9 degrees during the day time, clearly the temperature of the soil is not optimum for soya cultivation in Ukraine, which can be quite disturbing factor for the farmers to be in time for correct sowing period to having good harvest afterwards. That's why there is different projections what will be with soya area in Ukraine this year, and still it's not clear with the general sowing campaign and harvesting campaign. But other crops, for example, the situation remains the same, quite hard due to cold weather and due to very windy weather in the last days. For example, sugar beet, around 15,000 hectares of sugar beet, it has to be simply resown now, which gives some additional costs for the farmers. And here we come to the next factor, negative quite factor for this sowing campaign is increase for inputs. It's it's increase of input prices. This is the cost for diesel, which is like up to 40% up in Ukraine. It's increase for fertilizers due to Strait of Hormuz issue, due to overall global issue with these prices. Which limits or decreases the profitability and margins of different grains. And clearly that always small and medium farmers are always affected with this. So this clearly gives overall negative effect on the whole sowing campaign and soya campaign also. What Bertolan showed that more or less the projections from different analytics and also Donau Soja analytics, what we have, they show slightly decrease, more or less around 2 million hectares. Why? Because the preference is for bigger margin crops like sunflower or rapeseed, but still soya remains third most profitable crop in Ukraine for this time and interesting for farmers. And clearly, we should mention as so big linkage to the European Union market, we should mention the European Union regulations coming into force. It will be European Union deforestation regulation coming into force at the end of 2026, which will require additional actions from the farmers, processors, collectors, and traders. And also what my colleague Jovana mentioned, it's a proposal of European Commission actually to classify soybean oil as high indirect land use change, which will mean ban on usage of soybean oil in biofuels production and clearly shrinking of the crush premiums and decrease of soybean prices and general profitability of crops. What is additionally influences on the regulatory frame, it's new Ukrainian non-GM law, which has to be in place starting from September 2026. So actually September this year, it was approved by the parliament and signed by the president in 2023 with 3 years transition period. And this aligns Ukrainian regulation with European Union, meaning that now there will be a competent body that will do the checks for the farmers, cultivation, trade, and release of unregistered GM lines and GM varieties is not allowed. There is fines for these activities, and clearly this will influence also the market of soybeans, because under different estimations, around half of the soybeans in Ukraine is illegally GM. So starting from September, there would be really legal preconditions for making some actions from the state, from state, for the farmers, processors, traders also doing something illegal. Having said all this, I should now switch to really good and positive side of my presentation. It's a protein partnership program that under even these quite tough, changing and challenging conditions help farmers in Ukraine, in Serbia, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and also in Moldova to firstly cultivate non-GM soya sustainably. Secondly, to be aligned with European Union rules and regulations, meaning creating a level playing field in Europe, and also helping farmers, producers, processors, traders, and collectors to be prepared for the upcoming regulations, such as QDR regulation, because the program proves deforestation conversion-free status. It allows improved traceability and segregation. It confirms legality of production, and it helps to check in the laboratories the non-GM status. How we do this? Actually, we have sponsors of the program. It's big retailers chains like Lidl, Kaufland, and others. And also we have partners in 5 countries. At this moment, it's 73 partners that are going under certification, free of charge certification, which is covered by sponsors under the Donau Soja and Europe Soya standards. Just as I'm speaking from the side of Ukraine, I have to underline that 25% of soybeans, of non-GM soybeans in Ukraine, is already covered by Protein Partnership Program, which means that these soybeans is certified deforestation conversion-free, non-GM, traceable, and produced under strict sustainability rules. Additionally, I'm very proud to show this, that this is high recognition of the industry in Ukraine, this Protein Partnership Program, because last year, my colleague Anastasia is on the photo with this award of Sustainability Impact Awards in Ukraine for, generally speaking, particularly the Protein Partnership Program of Donau Soja. As a part of this program, we also run Donau Soja Academy, which focuses on the agronomical issues and helps farmers and also bigger producers to understand the latest possibilities for sustainable non-GM cultivation in Europe. And it's also cross countries sharing of experience with 5 major producing countries in Eastern Europe, but also with Western Europe. As a part of this academy, there was developed agroclimatic atlas for soya cultivation in Ukraine. That's why I know how the climate change is influencing. But there is also recommendation what soya farmers can adapt, what they can do to adapt to these climate conditions. And as a result of this improved cultivation knowledge techniques and agronomy, but also certification, conversion, and free status, we can say that soybeans certified under the Donau Soja and Europe Soya program, soybeans under the Protein Partnership Program, they contribute to the decarbonization of European Union value chains, having a reduction up to 50% of emissions comparing just to uncertified or overseas soybeans, which is proved by latest researches and also indicated in the branded carbon datasets for Donau Soja soybeans in major platforms for LCA calculations. This is our great team. You can contact everyone if you have any of the questions additional under for Ukraine and soybean cultivation in Ukraine, or you can contact me directly via the QR code. You will receive all my direct contact. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Vladimir, for this really interesting overview and insights from the Ukraine and activities you are doing as a team to advance sustainability and non-GM low carbon value chains from the Ukraine, mostly to the EU market. Next, I'm handing over to Mirjana Lalošević from Donau Soja office in Serbia, a country that, as we heard, has been several years affected by serious droughts, and she will bring the insights from these regions, but also showcase the role of regional office there in engaging farmers, industry, and institutions to strengthen the overall soybean value chains. So Mirjana, please, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Jovana, and thank you for these insights. My first question, am I sharing the screen? Just nod if everything is fine. Okay, thank you. Today, I will share insights from Serbia, but also Western Balkan region, focusing on soybean production. Also the challenges we are facing that you already heard from Bertalan, and the concrete steps Donau Soja is taking to address them. First of all, let me start with the big picture. It is really important for us to know that soybean in this region is not just another crop. This is not just raw material. Soybean in Serbia, but also in Balkan region, is processed locally into oil, meal, proteins that keeps capital in the region and strengthens our local industry. The sector in our region is really well established. Serbia alone has capacity of 500,000 tons for processing. We have about 6 large processors, but also large scale of smaller processors and animal feed industry. Bosnia and Herzegovina has one major processor. Croatia also relies on smaller scale processing. And beyond processors, there are hundreds of collectors, silos, and cooperatives. And in the heart of all of there are tens of thousands of farmers who are relying on soybean as a stable source of income. So I can say that we have good established ecosystem that drives employment and regional stability. However, currently, as you've heard, we are at a turning point. As Vova already told us regarding soybean historical involvement in Ukrainian, we have some similar situation. Soybean was introduced in Serbia about 2 centuries ago. However, for 2 decades, from early 2000s to 2021, soybean was fastest growing crop in the region. What were the main drivers there? High grain prices, of course, growing processing industry, and high yielding varieties all drove rapid expansion. However, since a few years ago, this picture has changed. We now have trend in stagnation and declining in cultivated areas, significant fluctuations in yield, and finally, yield loss. The main driver is climate, growing climate extremes such as uneven rainfall distribution, droughts, heat waves, and other, but those are the primarily ones. And all of this discourage our farmers, producers to grow soybean, which is now seriously threatening our regional plant protein base. I have also some data, state data. In this chart, you can see the production trend in Serbia over the past 5 years. You can see on blue bars import, you can see harvested area yellow, and in green domestic production. What is happening, you can see right now, the trend is clearly reflected in this data. Domestic production is declining, import have risen. This is also a kind of historical situation and turning point. Also, you can see that we faced last year 40% of yield drop in comparison with 10 years of average. So, what can we do about it, and what we are currently doing about it? Last October, we organized a sector working meeting, bringing together key value chain actors from Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Western Balkan, I would say, producers of soybean. We gathered producers, R&D sector, seed companies, processors, and traders, aiming to discuss the future soybean production under growing climatic, economic, and market pressure. The outcome of this meeting was a decision to establish expert working groups and to develop a regional action plan for the climate adaptation of soybean production. We established 3 working groups, one focused on agronomy, one focused on processing and market, and one on institutional support. Expert working group agronomy is working, I would say, for almost 6 months. We gathered leading experts, researchers, agronomists, advisors, and agricultural producers. You can see in this slide the members of this working group. Firstly, we conducted a questionnaire for more than 100 farmers in the region to collect facts and figures about soybean production historically, but also the current one. I put these numbers just for you to understand the problem that we are facing. These are data that we collect from farmers, and you can see that small-scale farmers in Serbia do not generate a profit from soybean production. These are numbers from last year. In Croatia, they generate profit only because they have subsidies for some practices and for legumes in crop rotation. When we compare the numbers from Serbia and Croatia for bigger producers, there are still some kind of profit. However, Croatia, because of the incentives and subsidies, are generating twice the profit compared to Serbian producers. Also, we have a lot of results from this survey. We don't have time to analyze that today. However, maybe important today for me is to tell you that there is a room for improvement, particularly when it comes to irrigation, because we have really small number of irrigated area in soybean production. Also, there is a room for improvement in practices that conserve soil moisture and increase soil organic matter. We, I would say, are in final phase of development of regional action plan for the next 3 years. We identified 20 measures, about 40 activities, all prioritized by impact, feasibility, and also time frame. Our action plan, actually the central goal of this action plan is to stable the yields. To achieve this, we again identified 3 pillars, the main natural resources such as water, soil, and plants. The water comes into first place as an absolute priority. We are missing a good infrastructure in irrigation systems, so this is a priority, but also advanced water management. And however, according to this survey, knowledge is crucial to ensure that infrastructure investments are used effectively. Then again, we have also issue with soil. This is our long-term, of course, foundation. However, data from the past 20 years show significant decline in soil organic matter across Serbia, across region. So this is also one point where we identify measures and activities. Finally, varieties. We all know that selection and breeding process when it comes to non-GMO varieties, breeding process to its tolerance to drought and high temperatures is really hard. However, there is a room for improvement. And also sowing schedules are important to adjust them to changing climate conditions. The second working group, processing and market, they identified institutional support as crucial, as key factor for sector development, and their priorities are some subsidies, financing, some procedure to be faster, and quality labeling. In this working group, maybe it is important to mention, we have all big processors from this region and also some smaller ones, and which is really important to have input and collaboration with them. The third working group held its first meeting a few days ago. We gathered ministries, banks, development organizations, and agencies with a goal to support this climate adoption, with a goal to support this regional action plan that we are developing. We were discussing and we understand now that we need clearer communication of existing support instruments. We need better exchange with private sector, with governmental one. And also we were exploring agriculture insurance solution, maybe also important today to say in this region, agriculture insurance solutions are really basic ones. We don't have for droughts or heat waves. So this is also one measure that we should work on. All three groups will have joint meeting in a month, and I think that our regional action plan is our roadmap. We will have it soon, and maybe also important to tell you that I want to emphasize actually that solutions alone are not enough. That's the reason we gathered the whole sector. We identified that we need financial support for every measure, every activity we identified, targeted instrument and subsidies. We need more data, more testing, like proof in practice, which are necessary for relevant decisions and recommendation. Education is also one thing that is important, on which Donau Soja is already working on. And also all actors from value chain should be and must be involved in this regional action plan. Without all of this, even best solutions are out of reach, and without all of these technological, agronomic solutions to actually reach average farmer are not included. So this is, I would say, from my side. So for your maybe information and something to wrap up, Western Balkan has a strong soybean sector. We are coordinating process of development regional national plan to support soybean adaptation to climate change and to bring soybean back to its place as a pillar of sustainable, secure, and European protein supply in the Western Balkan region. Thank you.
Thank you, Miljan, also for very interesting insights from Western Balkan region and the current challenges and important activities you are doing. We really believe that only together we can make a change, and that we all together need to work on the climate-ready strategies. And that will be exactly one of the topic of the coming Donau Soja annual event. With really renominated speakers who will address the main key issues that this climate change brings to Western Balkan regions, but also in the whole Europe. I would like to thank all of our speakers today, and maybe now it's time to address to your questions. I will just quickly look into the chat to see if someone raised any questions in the chat. If not so far, during the registration, some of participants already send us some questions in advance. So maybe we can pick up some of them and provide answers like this. So the first question will be how the market is affected by US and Iran war. Do you see any significant changes in the recent months with comparison to the last year trends? I believe we already have reflected this on the presentations in Vova and Bertalan. So yeah, please, if would you like to comment in more details.
Okay, I will start. It was definitely it's a very great question, and it's a burning question, I should say. What we showed in our presentation, it's diesel price, it's fuel price for the soybean campaign increased, which is a negative factor. It's increased the price for fertilizers, which what Bertalan showed on his slides may give more. May switch the sowing decision for the farmers in positive effect for soybeans. But clearly that there is a strong influence. What I showed in Ukraine, that the cost for sowing campaign increased on 20%, and this squeezes the margins for the farmers. And so, as example, in our region, gives the preferences for high margin crops simply to compensate the increased cost for sowing.
Thank you, Vova. Another question is also about the tendency towards increased soy cultivation towards Central EU countries. Bertalan, would you like to comment on this? We already saw in presentation the
Thank you
recent
for the
development.
question. So over the last, I'm wondering if it refers to the long-term trends or this year, but if it refers to the long-term trends, it's clear that over the last 15 years, we witnessed a very massive expansion of soya area and then production in almost all European countries. This expansion slowed down over the recent years, but I expect that in the next years it will continue. And our best forecast is, or if everything goes well and the market develops in the direction that we expect, and we forecast that the soya area in the next 10 years can grow with an additional 30%. I believe the biggest, when we speak about Central Europe, the biggest expansion potential is in Poland and Germany. But other Central European countries, for example, Hungary and Romania, Austria has also have great potential. And on the eastern side of Europe, there is not only a strong potential for area expansion, but also for yield expansion, because there is big gap between the yields in Eastern and Western Europe. What else I can say in this field? Now I give back the floor to you. This is my information about for this.
Thank you, Bertel. And also another interesting question: what impact do you expect with the Mercosur Treaty for EU soy cultivation in case there's also non-GM soy exported to EU? Volodymyr, would you like to comment on this? If there will be some significant change in what is expected, what is your forecast? You're muted.
I like to do this, to mute myself and start talking. It's not only, but it's clearly not because of the question for EU Mercosur. So generally speaking, I think Bertalan can also add here the trends, so what we see and what we have. Soybeans trade, as Bertalan showed, that European Union is very much unself-sufficient in the soybean. So soybean trade, it was always without any tariff limitations. Also with overseas countries, with Mercosur countries. So analytics and policy department of our organization, they see no significant changes in general trade environment before and after the agreement. So that's why, and still overseas Mercosur countries, what Bertalan also showed, keeps to be the biggest suppliers of soybeans and also soybean meal to the European Union. Also, this situation should stay. So, I mean, there is a status quo in this situation, and the agreement will not influence, or we do not see any possibilities to influence on the soya trade flows. But Bertalan, maybe if you have additional comments, please feel free.
No, I believe you answered the question.
Thank you both. Seems that also we have some questions in the chat. We had some issues, maybe that the participant could not type in the chat, but we are now trying to solve this. In the meantime, just two more questions that were raised in advance, and just to not leave them unanswered. So with the EUDR coming into the full force, what shifts do you expect in the availability of certified deforestation-free soy for European buyers beyond 26? Vova, would you like to pick up this? You mentioned the coming regulation, and we are expecting with the Commission to come up with some simplifications end of April, beginning of May. Any further insights?
This is a very good question. What the industry is generally speaking asking for 3 years in a row about what does it mean and how it will be implemented. Very, very tricky, or I don't know, is it funny or it's quite dramatic? And this is said that end of April actually is going to be in several hours. For my time region, it will be in 8 hours. For your time region, it will be in 9 hours. And still, there is no, I've not seen any additional information from the side of European Union Commission. So clearly, it's still lots of uncertainties in this. However, we as Donau Soja quite available or very much available about what's happening, regulation itself and its implications for the farmers, because, for example, Donau Soja is a part of round table for the implementation of EU regulation on the side of European Union Commission. So what we already was doing now, what I described is Protein Partnership Program, our certification program, Europe Soya, Donau Soya, and also we developed end-to-end solution, which is named Crop Insights, which allows companies to prove the deforestation-free status, also the legality status, and also to have simplified or connection with a due diligence registry. So you can do this in several clicks, quite easy. What we are planning to do additionally with the colleagues, we are planning separate webinar on the topic of EUDR and also the solutions that we have. How can you simplify your process and be prepared very, very much in advance? We originally planning it at the mid of May. More exact date will come when some information, additional information from the European Union Commission will come, and definitely we will invite you. So this is the state. This is the situation, the state, and the actions that we as Donau Soja is doing that to be ensured that Europe has deforestation-free, sustainable, and non-GM soybeans in place, which is aligned and which is compliant with any new or existing regulations.
Thank you, Ova. So definitely this year is a year to prepare for the EUDR, and maybe this is a new regulation but for our organization, there's nothing new in doing deforestation checks and analysis on the land use change and traceability. I would also like to read one question from the chat. Is there any information about the organic situation for soy in Europe and Ukraine? Bertalan or Vova, who would like to comment on this? Also, you can also maybe comment the prices development over the past years and what is the price status now compared to the conventional.
Yes, I can. Thank you for the question. I can talk about the price that the only official source of prices in the field of organic soya is the Bologna Stock Exchange. And it shows that over the recent months, the premium or the additional price of organic compared to the conventional soybean increased very much, actually. As long as 1 ton of organic soybean was traded at more than 700 euros, the comparable or the price for the conventional soybean was around 420 euros. So there is a massive difference. If I convert it to percentage, there is more than 60% difference between the two prices. And over the recent years, this price difference was lower. Both the price of organic soybean itself moved at a lower level, and both the difference between the organic and the conventional soybean. If somebody is more interested in the price developments of organic soybean, then I recommend the price indications or price reports of the Bologna Exchange. I'm wondering if Vova have additional thoughts in this field.
Thank you, Bertalan. I have only small information about Ukrainian organic soybeans. It has its share. It's not so big comparing to general cultivation area of soybeans. It's around 50,000-70,000 hectares annually. This is the area under organic soybeans, which still remains the main export. European Union here still remains the main export destination for Ukrainian organic soybeans, and what Bertalan told is the prices are the stock exchange prices, plus maybe some premiums for negotiations. This is the situation what we have in Ukraine at this moment with organic soybean cultivation. If you look at the dynamics, it's more or less stable for the last years. It's not growing, but it's not also decreasing. There is quite reliable partners in this field. Organic companies in Ukraine are also affected by deforestation regulations and also deforestation-free voluntary initiatives in different European Union countries. That's why I should say that around 70% of all organic soybeans in Ukraine has a double or combined certification, organic plus Europe Soya certification, just to prove deforestation and conversion-free status on top of being organically certified.
Thank you both. I would then suggest that if we are not able to answer to all questions here, we will try to follow up with you via email or after the webinar, or please just feel free to reach out to us if anything comes up. I will just share the screen with my last slide and key takeaways from this webinar. So as we heard, soybean area is stable overall with some sharp regional differences. Climate shifts opens new opportunities, while some regions, as we heard in a Balkan face, challenges. Other, like Germany and Poland, are gaining production potentials. Fertilizer prices make soybean a more favorable crop in next sowing season, and as we heard, it will also become more and more in coming years, as soybean is generally considered as a low input plant. Ukraine remains the key European soy producer, with the EU as the main driving export market. Donau Soja Protein Partnership Programs aims to create a level playing field at the EU level in Ukraine, Serbia, and Moldova. Also, what Vova highlighted, that with the Europe certified soy, you can significantly reduce your emissions in your supply chain, which is also relevant for the Scope 3 and upcoming regulations, but also to your sustainability commitments. Western Balkans need urgent actions, as we heard from Mirjana, and activating the whole soybean sector. This is something that Donau Soja is addressing here in our region and is leading the national action plan to tackle all these challenges. At the end, also, we not to forget our call to action to really mobilize your policymakers and ask to put delegated act on the agenda and to revise this until 10th of June. I will also use the opportunity to invite you to our Donau Soja annual event. I mentioned it several times. So it's a general assembly that brings members together, but also networking event in the afternoon that is open to everyone, and it's a place where European soybean community meets to reconnect, exchange, and stay informed. And as Donau Soja continues to evolve, we are putting now even more focus on what matters here. So to interactions, to networks, and to real partnerships across the value chain. So we invite you to join us and to come in Vienna and to spend some beautiful time in this beautiful city. So the full program and registration is available on our website, but also you can scan this QR code. And thank you for joining us today, being with us, and we all looking forward to seeing you again soon. Wish you a nice end of the day and also coming holidays.